And this one is a competitive route building and pickup and deliver game that I think you'll definitely want to check out, because this one's not only going to have beautiful artwork as well as amazing table presence, but this one is also coming from a duo of designers that have created a ton of fantastic games both together and individually. And those two designers are Adrian Adamascu and Daryl Andrews. And just some of the games that they've created include Sagrada, Seven Summits, as well as Dice Theme Park. And I do think that this game is going to be another one of their hits, because not only does it have that really nice table presence, it also has quite a few really interesting mechanisms that I think look like a ton of fun. And it's also super easy to teach and play, which is just going to make it that much easier to get to the table. And like I said, this one is a pick up and deliver and route building game, and those are the two main ways that you're going to be scoring victory points. Players are going to be trying to pick up goods at one location and then deliver them to another location that requires those goods in order to gain different benefits as well as victory points. And of course, players are going to be using their transport whales in order to do that. Players will be able to expand their whale fleet as the game goes on, but players can also alternatively build outposts. And of course, these two do work very different from each other, where your whales are going to be flying around delivering different resources. The outposts only stay in the location that you built them, but they do grant another bonus, allowing your whales to leave any of those locations where you have an outpost absolutely for free, whereas normally you do have to either use an action or pay to move your whale additional spaces. But where these two types of units are very similar is that they can both be used to build routes, because like I said, this is also a route building game, and you're going to be trying to create continuous routes between two specific points on the board in order to gain the victory points for that route. And I think it's so cool that you can build a route using immovable structures as well as your transport whales, because it's going to allow players to decide where they think the most beneficial spot is to build those immovable structures, and then fly their whales into the spaces in between in order to complete those routes. So there's two different things at play here that you're going to have to consider anytime that you're building a route, and it's going to be up to you to try and maximize that while also trying to take advantage of all the other opportunities that you come across. But of course, to do all this stuff, you're going to be performing actions throughout the game, and this is another area that I think is done really, really well, because in this game, you're actually going to have 5 different action tokens, each associated with a different number, and then for each of those numbers, there's going to be 2 associated actions that you can perform. There's going to be an action on the left-hand side of the board, and then another set of actions on the right-hand side of the board. And each of those actions can only be taken once, so if you take it, another player can't also perform that action. But at the start of each round, each player is going to be choosing one of their action tokens to discard for that round, which means that you're going to be limiting the number of actions that you have available to you. This means that you're going to try and discard the one that you think is the least useful for you for that specific round. But like I said, each of those numbered actions can only be used once by a single player. So if you really, really want a specific action, you're going to want to try and claim that earlier in the round. These actions are a great way to stock up on different resources, because on one side of the board, you're going to have all sorts of actions correlating to different pools of resources, whereas the opposite side of the board is going to be giving you some more specific actions to movements or performing other things like converting resources or interacting with other elements of the game. Since there's only 2 actions for each of the numbers, that means you might not be able to place one of your tokens on either of those locations if they both get taken when it comes to your turn. But there is another option here, because there's also going to be cards located at the top and bottom of the board, and claiming these cards can grant instant and ongoing bonuses with a whole variety of effects, and these cards do get refilled each and every round, which is going to add a whole ton of variety and options throughout a single game. Players will be taking turns issuing out one of these action tokens at a time, but there's also optional actions that you can perform on your turn, like spending fish to move your whales additional spaces, paying resources in order to build buildings or additional transport whales, or even loading and unloading your various cargo. And one thing to note about this game is that the locations are friendly, so unlike Ticket to Ride, if you do build or occupy a location, that does not block the other players, and all the players could simultaneously have an outpost in the same location. And as always, if this one does sound interesting to you, I'll have links to the campaign in the description below, and of course, you can click to get notified.